Watchers in the Fourth Dimension.
Shall I kill him, Swordmaster?
No, that would be necessary.
That's the trouble with peasants these days. They don't know their place anymore.
Apologies are unnecessary for the mistress.
Hello and welcome back to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Reilly, and when I play for high stakes, I like to hold all the cards.
This episode, Mary Tamm gets to play 4 different roles in a story full of doppelgangers and androids in The Androids of Tara. But before we get into that, Julie's going to take a look at the mail. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, Anthony. So first off, all of our mail is going to be on the Reboss operation. Second, everyone, we love you all, but we got so much mail that I'm only going to read out 10. Sorry if I cut you. I just had to make some decisions. First and foremost, we have Tony Monticello, who says, "Consider me on Team Binro." Tony, we can't be friends.
We can absolutely be friends, Tony.
It was a deeply touching moment when he found out he'd been right the whole time. Much as I love Vincent and the Doctor, I think it over-egged the pudding at the end. I prefer a story letting me feel my own feels rather than hitting me over the head with how it demands I feel. I guess I'm just old school that way. One thing I will say for the Graham Williams era, it set a gold standard for companions. Following Leela with Romana was a brilliant move. And then we have from Charles Martin, "I am so pleased that you have gotten to the Key to Time season and really enjoyed your comments on the Reboss operation, which at the time I thought was a delightful start to the new season. Very memorable characters with great names and some nice world building based on a number of British historical tropes, like the charming con men and the importance of historical artifacts and the rulers all being a bit or a lot weird. Very keen to follow your journey into the season, and thank you so much for your sometimes conventional wisdom bucking impressions. Read that as, I'm still agog at your unbiased look at Underworld."
We say it as we see it.
Yep.
He signed this as Charles Martin, who needs a goofy alias to be in with the cool regular commentators on this show.
Charles, you're cool with or without an alias.
Absolutely. Doctor Who's 60s, 70s, and 80s says, "Great episode, guys. It's a new season and a new start, and I'm so glad you all seem to like Rebos. I think it is a little gem. It's a Binro yay for me." I'm so sorry. This is so sad. Really looking forward to your thoughts for the rest of the season. This is how this is going to go, guys. I apologize. Not really. From our friend Alex Kaffer-Joglu. I haven't even finished this podcast yet, but I had to jump in to say, yay, yay, Binro.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
My people are speaking.
The first people I've ever heard not to like the character, so very much Team Anthony.
Yes.
Honestly, some of your takes for the last couple seasons, Fendal, Underworld, now Binro? I'm starting to think for my own sanity, I should stop listening to the podcast.
Whoa.
Trouble is, you're so damn entertaining, so please keep up the good work.
Aw, thank you. I thought we were about to have some words, throw in some fists.
Fisticuffs.
No need for fists.
All right, hands then.
I realize the two of you are getting upset at the Binro love, but I just see it as our listeners have some taste here.
We'll move on. From our friend Jamie Revel, "A wholly fun start to a 2/3 fun season." Okay, 2/3. "Romana is instantly effective, working well while being almost exactly the opposite of Leela." Fair. "The setting looks great, there's some nice world building, and the story is entertaining. And yes, I like Binro, damn it. He may not be in it much, but he really stuck in my memory after seeing this when it first aired. Just because the story isn't done as well as Van Gogh's will be later, doesn't mean it wasn't worth doing or that it doesn't work." I suppose, but I don't know.
Hard agree.
Here we go. R.L. Gray has a little bit differing opinion than a lot of folks. "I find this one terribly overrated, unfortunately. A lot of the individual elements are good, but it's way too long, and it feels odd that this action seems to be happening utterly removed from the rest of the Ribos society. 5 out of 10 lumps of Jethric from me. Oh, no, for the record." We got one, Reilly.
Yes, we did.
Might be the only one.
Yeah, might be the only one. I will say that they hated us because we told the truth.
Or they love me because I did.
Oh boy. We're gonna forever fight about this.
Buy your Binro Yay or Binro No t-shirts at Watchers in the fourth dimension.com.
Oh boy. Our friend Adam Wright says, I expected the White Guardian was drinking a mint julep. Yes, I love it. Love me the Southern reference. I love this story as a season opener. A good old heist with a bit of madness. Romana brings a refreshing breath of elegance. That's the right way to put that. Mary Tamm does not disappoint. I give this story 9 out of 10. Bones! Bones! Shining with ice light! Shining with a corpse light! I had to.
Nice.
Speaking of the White Guardian mint julep, I'm just imagining him speaking like Foghorn Leghorn, and I'm just dying on the inside.
Outstanding. I love it.
Please no. I guess I should also point out Adam Wright said Benro was enjoyable. Team Anthony, mic drop.
Yeah. Our listeners are some sexy, sexy people. Except for RL Grey. You're on my list, RL.
Dan Boris says, it's a little strange, but for some reason, I've never really been a fan of Romana. I feel like you're going to have fighting words for that, Anthony.
Yeah, maybe.
Despite this, I like most of the season, especially this episode. It has some great characters and gives us a believable protagonist. Fair. I really like Garon and Unstaf. I would love to have a big finish story where they go up against Jago and Lightfoot. Yep. I am definitely on Team Benro. He is a nice addition to the story, and the actor Timothy Bateson has quite a career. I give this one 8 overly dramatic soothsayers out of 10.
You know, I was unsure about Dan, but Dan's all right. Dan can stay.
Oh man, I guess I have to throw like most of you all out. David Patty says, just listen to the Rebos Operation podcast. Good to hear it getting love and praise. It's a story I've come to late. Because of where the season goes, cannibal planets, robot parrots, blood-sucking stones, giant broccoli, a small-scale story like Rebos can get a bit lost, and I'd kind of forgotten about it until my first rewatch. But it's great. Very witty, with some lovely performances, and yes, I'm Team Benro. Watching it again reminds me how much Timothy Bateson downplays him. Someone tells him he's right, and he doesn't whoop or punch the air. What he does is very touching. He relaxes. So I've really come to love this one. For me, it's 9 off-screen K9 dick shots out of 10.
Julie, are there any more pro Benro mail left in the mailbox?
Pro? Yeah.
Okay, we can just skip those.
No, I'm not going to cut our last one.
Okay.
Sorry. One last one. Our friend Austin D. Patterson says, yay, finally season 16. This and season 5 are my desert island seasons. And it's a birthday present to myself every year to rewatch the season. Okay.
Wow.
I just think season 16 is unparalleled in its world building and its character acting. And Rebos Operation is a fantastic start. Garen, Shrivenzal, and Jethric, and the addition of the badass herself, Romana, are all just wonderful. 9 out of 10 Jack Russell Terrier bites to the lip. And of course, yay Benro.
Yeah, Austin. You beautiful, beautiful man.
And sorry for truncating everyone's mail and cutting some people out this time, but if we went on it much further, half the episode would be mail. Back to you, Anthony.
Thank you for that, Julie. And as a reminder, we really do love getting your feedback, thoughts, comments, and questions, especially when you agree with me. And we do try and read out as many as possible on the show, but we are now having to make some hard choices because there are so many of you. So if your mail didn't get read out this time, please do not lose heart. We try to prioritize based on who we've heard from most recently, get some new voices in there. But as always, you can contact us through Facebook, Instagram, and X at Watches4D, or you can email us at watches4d@gmail.com. And of course, we would love it if you subscribe to the podcast if you're not doing so already, and if you dropped us a review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. Well, let's get to the androids of Tara, and heading behind the scenes. This, of course, fits into the context of the broader Key to Time season, and by January 1978, 5 of the 6 stories for the show's 16th season had already been decided upon. The first 4 were to be the Rebos Operation, the Pirate Planet, the Stones of Blood, and Shields of Zarak by a guy called Ted Lewis. Anyway, The final serial, the 6th one, was to be Bob Baker and Dave Martin's The Armageddon Factor, which leaves us with the 5th slot unfilled. Now, script editor Anthony Reed had been impressed with David Fisher's work on The Stones of Blood and decided to offer him the season's remaining adventure. At around the same time, Ted Lewis's scripts fell through due to personal issues. One element within Lewis's narrative was that Robin Hood was to have turned out to be a villain. Reed asked Fisher to develop a storyline that was of a similar swashbuckling mold, and he suggested using The Prisoner of Zenda as inspiration. And The Androids of Zenda was duly commissioned from Fisher at the end of May 1978. On the very same day as The Androids of Zenda was commissioned, Robert Holmes was contracted to write The Power of Kroll, which was to replace Shield of Zarak as the season's 4th story. The expectation was that with Holmes's experience, he would be able to pull together something workable in a very short amount of time. Michael Hayes was assigned to direct The Power of Kroll. But when Holmes's scripts started coming in, Hayes quickly became apprehensive of the story's extremely ambitious technical requirements. Much to Hayes's relief, producer Graham Williams agreed to switch The Prisoners of Zend, as it was now known, with The Power of Kroll in both production and broadcast order, giving Hayes Fisher's script instead of Holmes's. Incidentally, this is Hayes' first time in the Doctor Who director's chair, but we'll see his work again. In addition to Doctor Who, he's notable for working on An Age of Kings, A for Andromeda, and Z-Cars.
Z-Cars!
Yeah, woo, 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 woo. While writing the scripts, Fisher broadly followed the plot of The Prisoner of Zenda, and many of his characters parallel those of the book. King Rudolph becomes Prince Reinhardt, Antoinette de Mauban becomes Madame Lamia, Sapt becomes Zodiac, Fritz von Tarlenheim becomes Farah, and Princess Flavia becomes Princess Strella. Fisher combined Duke Michael and his henchman Rupert of Hentzau into Count Grendel. Fisher was particularly proud of this character and allowed him to escape in the end in the hope that he might be reused in the future. Spoiler alert, he's not. The role of Rudolf Rassendil was shared by both the Doctor and George. And meanwhile, the Archimandrite title is one that is often used in Orthodox Christian churches for a senior abbot. Initially, the story was set on the planet Zend, with the site of the coronation being a castle located in Tara, which is a reference to the ancestral seat of the kings of Ireland. Fisher had hoped that Zend would be populated by creatures of legend, such as unicorns. However, Graham Williams had different ideas, and he asked that the more fantastical elements should be dropped for budgetary reasons, and he also asked that the more obvious references to the novel be removed. With that, Tara became the name of the planet, and the serial was retitled to The Androids of Tara. Fisher had constructed his scripts so that Castle Gracht could be realised in the studio, but Hayes was able to secure permission to film in and around Leeds Castle in Kent. This was the site of a fortification dating from the early 12th century, although the modern castle was largely the result of 19th century construction. It offered venues suitable for both Castle Gracht and the Taran countryside. As we head into filming, let's give a brief shout out to the rest of the behind-the-scenes core team, where, of course, we have Dudley Simpson and John Nathan Turner continuing as both composer and production unit manager, respectively. As designer, we have the first contribution to the show by Valerie Warrender. She also worked on Z-Cars, Terry Nation's Survivors, and Monty Python's Flying Circus. And finally, as costume designer, we have the first of 2 contributions by Doreen James, and she would also work on Rent-A-Ghost, EastEnders, and Lost of the Summer Wine. Incidentally, she didn't have the budget that she wanted for costumes, and so when it came to the Taran Wood Beast, she was only able to construct a headpiece which barely concealed the fact that it was worn over a rented bear costume.
Yeah.
During the scenes of the Doctor fishing, Tom Baker was given an antique fishing rod to use, which he inadvertently threw into the River Len during rehearsals, and stunt arranger Terry Walsh had to dive in and rescue it. This was strangely not the only water-related mishap. Another one occurred when the sound recordist fell into the moat while the scenes of K9 in the boat were being filmed. Otherwise, filming went without a hitch, and the finished serial was broadcast between November 25th and December 16th, 1978. Now, before we jump in and discuss this serial, the short summary is with Reilly this episode, so over to you, Reilly.
Thanks, Anthony. Julie, I'm going to pick up where you left off with your summary of the Mask of Mandragora. 2 households, not alike in dignity, in fair terra where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where androids make civil hands unclean. From forth the happenstance of these 2 foes, the Doctor and Romana risk their life, whose wacky misadventures overthrows, do with their cunning cause the Count's strife. The thrilling passage of their work did prove, despite the efforts of the Count's fiends, that the crown on the prince to not remove is now the 2 hours traffic of our screens, the which if you with patient eyes attend, what this summary shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. By the way, I hate Shakespeare.
Pretty good job, though.
Yeah, that was solid. All right, let's jump in and discuss this. And so part 1, we actually start in the TARDIS. I feel like this has been a theme. We are getting there much quicker.
Yeah.
Agreed, and we get back to playing chess with K9 again, and Romana seems to be borrowing from Princess Leia's wardrobe with that really New Hope gown that she's got going on.
I likened it to some of the costumes in Jesus Christ Superstar.
I just thought she looked hot.
There's certainly some costume choices in this serial. We'll get to those. But obviously that's the first one. Well, speaking of costumes, it's nice to see that the TARDIS has a closet that is alphabetically organized by location.
Not only are the Doctor and K9 playing chess, but he shares his scarf with K9. And I thought that was adorable.
It's so cute.
They have been growing their bond more and more as K9 has been on the show compared to how he was within the first few serials where K9 was there. Obviously because he wasn't his dog to start with, but it has been building.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I feel like we see more of that throughout the story, so we will come back to that.
Yes.
Although I will actually go back to the outfits because Romana changes. And her outfits, she tends to be very impractical, but I love them anyway.
Right. It was quite a choice.
She looks great in Taran purple.
It looked like she's wearing something from the Jamiroquai collection, I'm guessing, because wow, that was something else. Either that or the Mad Hatter. It was really weird, but I'm for it. I'm okay with it.
I love it.
And she has this, I wouldn't say disagreement. She has a determination to just go get the key to time, and the Doctor just wants to go fishing. And so she's just go do her own thing. And at that moment, when it was the Doctor being left at the bank of the creek or river, I really got excited because I thought, oh, are we going to have a Romana-focused episode? Where, like, literally the Doctor he's going to be there, and then at the end of part 4, she's just going to show up, and he's going to just be wondering, like, where were you? I've been fishing this entire time. That's not what we got.
He was not on vacation.
Yeah, I kind of love it, though, for 2 reasons. Firstly, Douglas Adams' original idea for the Pirate Planet was to have the Doctor find the segment right at the beginning of the episode and have him try and hide it from Romana. We almost have the opposite here, where it's Romana who finds it, but circumstances keep it away from them for most of the episode. However, I do kind of find it funny that the Doctor really doesn't want to be involved in this, and he's effectively forced to by either having to save his own skin or save Romana. He doesn't want to be doing any of this, ever, in this story, and I kind of love that.
I like it, but also at the same time, we've spent 2 episodes, serials, finding these things. 3, I don't know where we're at.
It's 3. This is the 4th.
Okay, there we are. And it just seems weird that at this point, this is the time where he's like, you know what? I just don't want to.
I mean, I wake up feeling like that almost every day, so I thoroughly empathize with it.
Now, one thing I did enjoy when Romana goes off is, 1, Dutters does an excellent job of setting the mood. I loved it. We also had those obnoxious bird noises that then the Doctor also comments on, and I felt validated. And we got, guess what, guys? Tracer buzzing intensifies.
Nice. It's been a while since I've heard an intensifies from you, Julie.
I know, I was so excited.
I thought your going to comment was going to be, and you know what we get, guys? A silly-ass bear costume.
Yeah, Romana is promptly attacked by a man in a gorilla suit. I mean, the Taran Wood Beast.
I don't know. I think there's a miscommunication here because I see him coming out there and his arms outstretched. I think he just was looking for a hug. I don't think he was there to harm her.
Poor Taran Wood Beast, so misunderstood.
Right, but then that's when Count Grendel shows up.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, he is fantastic. He's so charming and just so shameless the whole way through.
He's very charming, but also at the same time, a few things slip in there where if you actually pay attention, you're like, well, wait a second. Because one of them was he keeps beasts around to keep people out. And it's like, why would a normal person do that? But I love him anyway. He's so good.
I think it's so funny where he's like, yes, I'm Count Grendel of Gracht. And then he's talking and he's like, and of course, all unusual stones and minerals must be registered with the Knight of Gracht, which is me, I guess. So you're coming back to my castle.
Right. And then I also enjoy the part where when he's convincing her, he says, what's an hour out of your life? Well, apparently Count Grendel has never seen the Space Pirates.
That's more like 2.5 hours, Reilly.
Yeah, I know.
Don't do a disservice to how much of our lives we gave to that story that we will never get back.
Going back to it, so what we have here, and you mentioned earlier, Anthony, we have the key to time found. Bang. First 5 minutes. I think that's really lovely, great idea, very practical to just grab it and put it to the side. And now we have the other interesting element of the immediate reveal of our character from being helpful, maybe a good person, to being our villain. And also that's done within 10 minutes. It's refreshing and it's quick pace. I do like that element of it very much.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, we very quickly meet the other side.
Yes.
And the first thing they do is set the doctor's hat on fire.
I mean, is it Farah?
Farah.
Yeah. He's a bit ridiculous.
I think he's fantastic. I love him.
He's fantastic, but also ridiculous.
Yes. I mean, just generally setting the doctor's hat on fire, then later he burns the doctor's scarf in half. When he stands on it and the doctor says, you're standing in my scarf, they both laugh. He says, I'm terribly sorry, and then burns it. I mean, he is out there, and I love him. And everyone kind of knows he's just a little over-enthusiastic.
It's interesting how our initial introductions to both of these, as I said in my summary, households or houses, is our first impression of the Count is, oh, what a very friendly, nice person. And our take on the other group is, oh, well, they're very standoffish and they're bullying the doctor. Not so great. Not to say they actually ended up being that good in the end, or they showed to be very good people, but they definitely were better than the Count. That's about the only thing going for them.
I do want to give a shout out here to the dialogue. And part of the problem with this season is both Tom Baker and Mary Tamm are on record as saying they improvised a lot. So I can't really tell what's David Fisher and what's Tom Baker or Mary Tamm. But things like, this is Prince Reinhardt's hunting estate. What? Prince Reinhardt? Never heard of him. It really sparkles again, and I know we called this out in the Stones of Blood, which was, of course, David Fisher as well, but it could be Tom and Mary. I don't know, but it works. It's really entertaining to watch.
I anticipated Princess Strella could have been the surgeon, Lamia. I really wanted that to happen because I thought that would be a really fun twist. But no, it was just someone who looked like Romana, which ended up working very well in the storyline. But I just thought that that could have been something that would have been interesting to see.
I see what you're saying. I don't know. I kind of love the storyline with Lamia. She is so tragic. Ultimately, she's the only character that dies in this. She's also the only woman other than Romana, which after David Fisher's previous story, which was very woman-heavy, is an interesting reversal. She's just kind of tragic. She's so in love with Grendel, and there's even a line of, he's just playing with you, and she's like, yeah, but at least it's something.
Oof.
It's very desperate. I think she's the most tragic character in this, and I love her.
Absolutely. I really did enjoy her. It was just like one of those things that I was anticipating and didn't happen. Now, what I did anticipate and what absolutely happened was when they're like, oh, hey, doctor, we're now friends, so let's all have a drink. Yeah, don't have a drink, everyone. That's a terrible idea.
I want to know who spiked the drink and when.
Right. Yeah.
There were a lot of people that we did see, right? once we got to the coronation that was supposed to happen, you found a lot more people, but for the most part, they kept the cast very small.
They did. And let's talk about this plan, because we get introduced to it in this first episode. So Reinhardt is meant to be crowned as king. Grendel is in line to the throne, but his claim is not as strong as Reinhardt's. So he basically wants to stop Reinhardt. There is the third person, which is Strella, who Grendel has locked in his dungeon. So here we have Grendel spiking their wine to kidnap Reinhardt and lock him in the dungeon. And then on top of this, there's an android copy, because even before Reinhardt was captured, they thought it would be better to have a second version of him so that at least they could have a decoy effectively.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pretty complicated succession plan. And it gets even more complicated as we get into it.
Yes. Well, I guess I'll raise my points about it when we get to part 2. But while we're still on part 1, I do feel like I have to throw a criticism at the serial, and that is I'm not a fan. Within the same season, we've gone to 2 alien planets, and both of them are filled with swords and royalty. And I'm just want something different. I don't want an alien planet that looks like something from human history. I want something to look like an alien planet.
You will get your wish in the next 2 stories, for better or for worse, Reilly.
Good. I want my damn Zarbies when I'm talking about.
You get giant calamari next story. What more could you want?
Oh, there we go. Finally.
I heard rumor of broccoli.
Yeah, I heard that too.
It looks like broccoli, but it's calamari.
Oh.
It's still edible.
Moving on.
Well, I guess we should discuss part 2.
We should discuss part 2. Let's go.
I don't know about either of you here, but in a situation like that, where if you've been drugged with 3 other people and you wake up before any of them and you see everyone else knocked out, you're the first one to wake up, why would you think that one of them is the traitor that drugged all of you? Because if he was, wouldn't he have just left? Why would he stay there after drugging all of you? Obviously, that was the intention, was to drug everyone and then get something. Well, then why would he think that?
Because Farah is ridiculous.
Also, while we're on Farah, I need to make, I believe now this is my second one, nomination for Worst Supporting Actor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, so
Bad line delivery.
I didn't necessarily think it was the acting that was bad. I just thought it was a ridiculous character.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Julie. He's ridiculous, but he's not necessarily bad.
But to each his own. I didn't like the seer that time, and, everyone else liked her. Fine. But I agree on the why did they think the doctor did it, all that kind of stuff. I think it's a step too far to drug yourself just so that you don't look like you're the one who did it. That's a little bit of a stretch of the truth.
You just leg it and get out of there.
Right.
But also, when Farah goes after K9, I was like, oh, is he going to get shot in the dick? Oh, he didn't get shot in the dick. But he still got, he got what was coming to him.
He got embarrassed enough that it was a metaphorical shot in the dick.
Perfect.
I mean, what more could you want?
I will say one thing before we move on. There were a lot of noises in the serial, and my new dog decided that he's the one who wanted to be really concerned about some of the noises that were in the episode.
But not as concerned as Rumble.
Not quite as concerned, no.
Okay. All right. Well, now we've got 2 dogs being concerned. So we've had effectively both of our main characters starting this episode unconscious. The doctor's been spiked, and Romana at the end of part 1 was injected and has been unconscious for 12 hours. And then he takes her down to the dungeon, and this is where we find out about Princess Strella, who just happens to look identical to Romana.
There's a lot going on here.
Yes.
And one thing that I noticed too is that Grendel's going on this big, long background story, right? He's talking about Princess Strella and everything, and then he alludes to the fact that he had been sleeping with Lamia, but that she didn't know her place because he thought that she was like trying to climb up the ladder. I was like, dude, you're the worst.
He is. He's terrible, but so charming at the same time. And Lamia's pretty in a very odd kind of way.
Yeah.
She's not conventionally attractive, but she's attractive.
And she's super smart.
Yeah, she's totally undervalued by him. dude, if you're the king, you can take whoever you want as your queen. Just buck convention and take Lamia. It's fine. Particularly if you're going to marry Strella, then kill her. You're going to be a widower anyway. It feels like, we haven't heard of that many other nobles. Just go with a peasant. It's fine.
The other thing is okay, all well and good. You've killed off these other people who are in line for the throne. And now you have to have an heir. What are you going to do if you don't have a queen?
Yeah.
Throwing that out there.
Romana would be my prime choice for queen, but I would settle with Lamia.
Okay, we have Romana still captured. And they are going to go look for her. And they pull out this map. And bless them, it looks like a child created this map. It is one of the most immature looking maps I've seen on a television show that wasn't created by a child.
Yeah, that is definitely kind of a fail from our girl Valerie on the design team.
I was hoping you were going to say, Anthony, that in the behind the scenes that it was some sort of like Make-A-Wish situation.
Sadly not. No, there's no blaming an actual kid for this. This was an adult that put this on screen.
And Julie mentioned it. I feel like we need to focus a little bit more about this. The Romana captured plotline. Not a fan. And it's just, I felt like we were moving away from this. And I guess it's okay to do it occasionally. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass. But I find it would have been so much more interesting in this situation if, instead of her being captured, both Romana and the doctor found themselves working for each house, aiming for the crown, not knowing that's what the other one was doing.
Yes.
And not being in communication and using their smarts. And they're actually in a battle of wits against each other. And they're not even aware that it's against each other because they can't find each other. That would have been so much cooler, I think.
100%. And here's the thing, Reilly. To your point, this is the second story in a row written by David Fisher. And this is the second story in a row where he has put Romana in a dungeon or a prison cell.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I could forgive it in part 1.
Oh, yeah.
But then she gets captured again.
Yeah. And wow, that moment right there, I was like, oh, so the writer just kind of was like, how do I do this? How do I finish this story? Oh, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. And then she just gets captured again. Okay, good night. Bye.
And here's the thing, Reilly, to your point, it would be so easy. All they needed to do was give Grendel a very disingenuous but still genuine sounding sub story about how the rightful crown is being usurped from him by this prince and it should be his. And Romana from the start of the season has been written as kind of naive.
Right.
So you have her buy into that. And to your point, then her and the doctor have no idea they're doing it, but they're both working as the strategist for the opposite sides.
Would have been so much fun.
That's a really, really cool suggestion. And I'm going to give you full credit for that, Reilly, because I had never thought of that.
Thank you.
I love it. Love it.
Whoa. All right. Well, moving right along, can we talk about the palace meeting room? I'm getting a little ahead of ourselves here. The doctor talks to Farah and Zardik.
It's pronounced Zodiac.
Zodiac. And says, okay, we'll just use the android. He has to be in the throne room at this time. We'll just use the android. That's what we'll do. And we'll use that to cover until we resolve the being captured issue.
Yep.
So we go to the palace meeting room. And I want to point out, did anyone notice the giant clock face in the palace meeting room?
Yeah, it's an astrological clock.
Yeah, how the hell would they come up with the exact same zodiac symbols as we do?
Yeah, it's probably loosely based on the one that's in the main square in Prague.
Right.
So they probably use that as a reference, but I was looking at this and thinking, okay, that's an interesting take that these symbols would be the same, but...
Yeah, not a fan of that.
Gets the points across. But I did think those sets, the throne room, as well as the antechamber where everyone's gathering, they are gorgeous sets. They look really good.
Yes, they do.
I mean, they're probably on location at Leeds Castle, so, that's why they look so good.
I love that. For the most part, I liked the plague tunnels. Also, the fact that they called them plague tunnels, I was like, oh, yay.
They're a bit green. They kind of look like they should be in the Green Death.
Yes, well,
Oh.
I like them a little bit later, and I guess it's not even necessarily the tunnel. I think it was just a darkened hallway that they used in part 4. But we'll get there when we get there.
We will.
But I will say that the guy who was going to lead the coronation, I don't have it written down in front of me, so I don't remember what it was. He had a coat of many colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Archimandrite. And that's Cyril Shaps, who we have, of course, seen before. He historically was our stereotypical nervous character. He played Viner in The Tomb of the Cybermen, Lennox in The Ambassadors of Death, and Professor Clegg in Planet of the Spiders. So this is his first role with kind of confidence, and he fucking rocks it.
He does. He is a pleasant character. I really do like that character. I do find this plot device of how they will determine who they should crown a bit humorous in a way.
Oh, I think it's meant to be.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I like the idea of, okay, we've planned to crown this person, and maybe we've been playing this for months, maybe a year or two. But if he is late, you know what we should do? We should just pick up some asshole out of the crowd and crown that person. That's what we should do. That just seems insane to me. And the fact that he talks so generally to the Count about it, it's like, yeah, if he doesn't get here in like 5-10 minutes, yeah, I guess we'll do. Like, what?
Yeah, that was a bit ridiculous. But I gotta say, the lead up to it is excellent because you've got Grendel thinking that it's going to be him. They burst open the doors and everyone just crowded around the throne with the android just sitting there. Oh, that was such a fabulous shot, and I love it.
It is very humorous. The ultimate, let's see if I can just fly by the seat of my pants, turn in this homework assignment really just slapdash and see if I can get away with it. Very, very good. But then we get what I think is one of the best cliffhangers in a long, long time.
The doctor just hitting Romana.
Just braining her. Oh, man. It's just a shame. I know if they had to reduce the violence and it couldn't be too graphic. And I'm not asking them to start having like blood splatter, but it wouldn't be blood because it's, of course, Android. But we're keeping it that way for the cliffhanger's sake because we want to get people in suspense. But I would have really enjoyed just a couple more long shots of just the doctor just wailing before we cut away. That would have been humorous.
I want to call out Tom on this.
Okay.
Because in the previous story, he had refused to be seen on camera as the one effectively calling Romana to the cliff edge and pushing her off. He said it would look bad to see the hero attacking the companion. And yet here, effectively, that's exactly what he does.
More direct. So much more direct.
So I want to call that out. That's all. Tom, come on, dude. Consistency.
Yeah.
Part 3?
Part three. Let's go.
Now, this is something I found really interesting about the Count, and as ridiculous as he can be at times, and how he pronounces things, Peter Jeffrey is Count Grendel. I really enjoyed.
He's superb.
And, you know, I don't want to, what's the word? I'm making this comparison not as a slight to the great. I'm just saying this as it reminded me. It gave me some Delgado vibes.
Oh.
I don't know if it was the facial hair. I don't know. But there's something about his smarminess and
his confidence.
And confidence, while still also being upped by the doctor consistently. Maybe that was it.
He has a much bigger nose than Delgado.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes, he does.
But it's just the mannerisms, too.
I see it.
One, I don't know if I'd call it a plot hole, but on a slightly different note. So at the end of part 2, they take Romana out of the room. And so that's why you think that he actually hits Romana, because she gets taken out of that room. And then in part 3, they take her back to the room. So in that span of time, where was Romana? It's
plot hole.
Very strange. I don't know, but it's fine. One thing I noticed in Reilly, I kind of had some notes here, but regarding Grendel, is he was exuding Shakespeare qualities. And so I think that's partly why you came up with using Romeo and Juliet at the beginning, but it was wonderful.
He was great. I really enjoyed him. And he has such great lines, and the deliveries are really good. And it just works with that type of dialogue. For example, you see before you the complete killing machine, as beautiful as you and as deadly as the plague. If only she were real, I'd marry her.
I love it.
Oh
it's
my God.
So ridiculous. And to be fair, for a good part of this, he's ultimately winning. He has prince, the princess, and Romana.
Yeah. Like I said, he likes to hold all the cards.
He's brilliant. I love him.
Yes.
All right, I do want to talk about Lamia.
Okay.
Here.
Yes.
Because poor Lamia. Firstly, she spends most of this episode trying to figure out the segment. And then she's also the one that recognizes that Romana isn't Taran, and no one seems particularly freaked out by this.
Which is unusual.
Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. And that tells us so much about this society. This is a society that has crossbows that shoot electronic bolts, electric swords, and androids. And yet they cosplay like they're living in medieval times the whole time. And then they're not fazed that there's an alien on their planet. It's a really, really interesting thing to do with this. So do they have space travel? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, or not necessarily at the end, but when does Lamia die?
In the third?
It is in the third. So yeah, she's sent into the pavilion to confront the doctor, send in fake Romana, and she dies for her efforts in support of the Count.
Right, because his bowman just started shooting wildly when she exited the pavilion.
At his order.
Right. He doesn't seem that broken up about it, just a little bit. It's really, as you said before, it is quite sad.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shows the lack of value that she has to him. He likes her for what she does, but there's no deeper feeling here.
Oh, he's just plain up using her.
Yeah, it's awful. Lamia deserves better.
Yes, absolutely.
Which does a good job of, I think, it helps prevent the audience from being too charmed by the Count, because let's face it, he's a lot of fun when he's just being a villain. Because, like, what is he doing, really? He has these plans. He wants to take the crown, but he hasn't truly done anything too dastardly. Yeah, we have some kidnapping. I love that I'm kind of just brushing all this horrible stuff under the rug. Like, yeah, so it's just a little bit of kidnapping. That's all he's done.
NBD.
Right. But Lamia, that shows his cruelty. That shows like, okay, yeah, this character's a lot of fun, but you really need to not like him. He's not a good person, audience. Stay away. Do not be taken in by his charms.
Yeah, but he's such a good villain.
Oh, he's wonderful. It's really, really something that I was impressed with in this. I feel like it's been a long time since we had something like this, which is obviously why it felt old Zagaldo to me.
I mean, if he had killed everyone else off, there was no one else in line for the throne, he was it, and he offered to marry me, you know what? It might not be so bad.
And here's the deal. Like, this is such low stakes.
Yes.
He's not looking to take over the universe. We don't even really find out what he wants to do when he takes the throne. Maybe he will actually be quite a good king. Like, he's just bad because he's just kind of ruthless in how he wants to get there.
Right. I like that concept, Anthony. I think that'd be really funny if we find out later that actually he was the person, if crown would have been more beneficial for the people, and the prince would have been just this cruel dictator. That would have been really funny to me.
Good King Grendel.
Good King Grendel. We are getting to a part now, after that shootout at the pavilion, everyone meets up back at the prince's place. And then we have this wonderful moment. Sorry, we're just going to keep talking about the Count. This is just the Count's hour, apparently. He shows up there waving the white flag. And we have, which I wish we had more of, we have a dialogue scene between the Doctor and the Count. And I have to say, I love it when the Doctor plays dumb with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
It is so enjoyable. And I just wish it turned into something a bit more at the end, other than the Doctor tattling on him. But it was still enjoyable nonetheless.
Well, and how he shows up and he's like, "Oh, Doctor, I was glad you managed to escape safely." It's like, no, you're not. You wanted to kill him. But he's going to show up and be fucking charming because that's just what he does.
That's how he rolls.
So fun.
There's a couple things in between all of that I wanted to touch upon. And they're really silly things, so they don't mean that much. But one is when they're having the shootout and the Grok says, "You have my word as a Grok." And Tom Baker throws open the door, yells out, "Liar," and slams it back shut. It's so good. I absolutely love that. And then K9 did get to hit a few people in the dicks. That was really fun. But then when the Doctor says, "K9, it's every man for himself," I'm like, You're just leaving K9 stranded? What are you doing?
Yeah, that was odd.
K9 can look after himself. Anyway, Grendel spears the king, takes Romana with him, and that's the end of part 3. So let's go on to part 4 and wrap this story up.
This is where a pleasant cereal
Goes bad?
crashes right into a mountain. Jeez.
So bad.
Like I said before, it felt like the writer ran out of steam. It's like he didn't know what he wanted to do. He just got frustrated and he said, screw it. She gets captured, we're going to have her rescued. That's going to be the end of the story. What? There are freaking androids in this, and now they're just pointless. It's called the Androids of Terra, not the castle siege or the rescue of Romana. Come on, man.
So a couple things. I don't necessarily mind the having to say Romana. What I mind is like a 15-minute duel.
Oh, God. I was getting Pertwee flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
100% Pertwee.
Maybe that's where I was getting my Delgado-ness from as well.
Yes, it's one of those things where there were still some good lines and things like that. The doctor saying, is it wedding bells or a funeral knell? I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, it's good.
The moments between the doctor and K9 are fun because in some ways he's really good to K9 and then he's mean to K9 because that's how the doctor rolls. But that fight scene.
Right. And it just goes on. I always told people I describe our podcast as being kind of a companion if someone was to watch all of Doctor Who chronologically. I would say that if this was something that was written out in a book as a guidebook for people, I would say when that sword fight starts, if you need to go to the restroom or get something to drink, this would be a good time.
Savage.
Oh, it's true. It's so true. It's just,
It is needlessly drawn out.
Right. And once again, leads into my theory that they didn't know how to end this, or that the writer got incredibly lazy. It's like, oh, shit, I don't even want to write words anymore. Just have them fight for 10 minutes. That takes up half of the script time. Perfect.
One thing that's nice, though, is I do think that the director did what he could to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So before the fight actually starts and they're walking to their wedding and they're in the darkened hallway and the music's very good. Dutters was on point there. And then when they do the fight, they return to that dark corridor, and that made the fight more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. There's Romana sneaking off. There's Reinhardt opening the drawbridge or the gate. I think my favorite thing, and I think they're taking the piss a little in this, because at one point in the middle of the fight, Tom yawns.
Yep. Yeah, he does.
And I think that's deliberate, and I think they're taking the piss.
Maybe it's him criticizing the script at this point. He seemed very well into it in the other episodes.
Yeah, and that's why I don't think that's him doing it. I think that was scripted. I think he yawns, and that's just David Fisher taking the piss out of these long fight scenes. I think it's very self-aware.
Could be. What I do like is, one, Brock's minion, I don't remember what his name was. Sorry, Anthony, I'm not like you. I can't retain that information.
Oh, Custer, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that
He
guy.
was very gross. That made me feel very, very icky.
No, the way he goes into Strella's room and laughs creepily, I was like, wait, I'm getting very rapey vibes off of this guy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And Romana coming in to save the day, obviously great. I wish that they had been able to spend more time on screen together.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that little piece that they had at the very end. They could have been friends. There could have been a lot more from that story arc. I know it's a little difficult because it's Mary Tran playing two people, but come on, let's do this.
And also it's 1978, so that kind of split screen tech is expensive. So I kind of get why they only did it for a very short time. But certainly from a hypothetical level, yes, Julie, I agree. It would have been glorious to see Tamm on Tamm a bit more.
Oh, no, that is not what I meant, Anthony. Not what I meant.
God.
I can't.
You're the one who interpreted that sexually.
No, you implied that, Anthony.
I plead the fifth.
As much as we enjoyed the Count, was anyone else pleased to see that he survived?
I think it's somewhat refreshing because we oftentimes have the villain die.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that I necessarily need to see him back, but it is nice to have instances where the good guys win, but it's not because of killing someone.
Right.
I think it's hilarious that at the end he's like, I will come back and I will get you, Doctor. And it's like, how? The Doctor's going to fuck off into all of time and space.
Yeah.
He does actually come back in a short story that was published in the mid-90s.
Wow.
Boy.
Yeah.
So no big finish, just a written short story.
Just a written short story that is full of unnecessary fan wank. He teams up with a 7th Doctor era villain, and yeah, it's unnecessary.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. There's a female companion dressing as a man. There's men dressing as women in it. It's very OTT. It's very heavily playing into Shakespeare, Titania, and Oberon name check. It's unnecessary in a very kind of 90s way. Anyway, so Grendel escapes, and in the meantime, the king and Strella actually kiss. Kind of left me wondering, this is a monarchy situation. Are these two related? Seems kind of likely. Anyway. And they've forgotten poor K9. He's adrift on a boat in the middle of the moat.
The Doctor's laugh during that kind of pissed me off.
Right. He just seems to be spinning in the boat for some reason.
Yes.
Okay. That's not how boats work.
I'm guessing there's some kind of current in that moat. I don't know, Reilly. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Poor K9, though.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the serial. And let's do a recap of our metrics. This has 0 instances of I'll explain later. I did not see any jelly babies.
No jelly babies.
However, we do need to make an adjustment to that count.
What?
So one of the items that was called out in the mail around the Reboss operation but didn't make it to the final cut, Guy Lambert called out that at one point in that episode, there is a bag of jelly babies sitting next to the Doctor on a table. And as we count a bag of jelly babies as 10, we're going to bump that up on the Reboss operation. So that's an extra 10 jelly babies for the season. Back to the androids of Tara, however. Camp count. What are you guys thinking?
What did we give the captain in the Pirate Planet?
Pirate Planet only got a total of 3.
Then I'm giving 1.5.
1.5. Okay. Julie, thoughts, feelings?
Because really the only person who's really campy is the Grok. Farah isn't campy. He's just ridiculous, but he's not camp.
I'm actually going to bump it up to 2 because I think the Archimandrite's costume is kind of campy.
Okay.
So that gets a half. So we're going to go with 2. So let's get to rating this. And Reilly, you have the dubious privilege of going first.
I'll just be straightforward. What I liked: the Doctor's demeanor, the dialogue, the count, and the starting premise. What I didn't like: Romana getting captured twice and not getting much to do. The lack of originality of having another alien planet with monarchs and swords. Lastly, the fact that we start off with a clever battle of wits in the very first few parts of the serial with how to trick people with androids, and in the end we just get a simple castle raid and a sword fight that was way too long. There was opportunity here, but as I said before, it felt like the writer just ran out of steam or give a shittedness. I give this 5 Jamiroquai hats out of 10.
Wow. Okay. Julie, what are you thinking?
Okay. A lot of similar things. The story premise at the beginning is good. I really enjoyed the music in this. I think Dutters did a really good job of setting the tone in a lot of places. There were a few times that maybe not so good, but overall, he added to a lot of atmosphere. I think the direction is very good because, yes, we had a drawn-out fight scene, but he did the best that he could with it. And I just think that it was fun, but yes, drawn-out fight scene, not so fun. Romana being captured, not so fun. But I'm going to be kinder than Reilly was, and I'm going to give it 7 coat of many colors out of 10.
Okay. So I have a friend who rates this as his favorite Doctor Who story of all time.
Wow.
If any of you, dear listeners, listen to the Flight Through Entirety podcast, my good friend Brendan Jones is that person. And I admire Brendan's enthusiasm. I think there's a lot to like here. This is very fun, in my opinion. Grendel is just chewing up every single corner of the scenery he can get his mouth around. And he's a blast. I actually think Lamia's story is beautifully tragic. I think the king is kind of fun. And I love the concept of Mary Tamm effectively playing 4 different roles between Romana, Strella, and then both of their android duplicates. I just kind of wish there'd been a bit more done with that. I like the Archimandrite. He is fucking shameless in how he is just throwing his lot in with Grendel through the story. I mean, Grendel's basically like, yes, the king's going to marry Strella, and then the king's going to die, and then I'm going to marry Strella. And the Archimandrite is just like, sure, I'll perform the ceremonies. I'm in. Shameless. He knows where the balance of power is, and he has zero conviction to uphold. He's the real villain of the story here. But you're right, there are some failures. I think Romana spending so much time being captured is a crying shame. Reilly, I love the idea you had about the Doctor and Romana unwittingly playing off against each other. That would have made this truly magnificent. But there's still a lot here I like. So yes, it could have been improved. Is it as strong as the first 3 stories? Probably not. But I'm still going to give it 7.5 actually quite unconvincing masks on top of a bear costume out of 10. Which gives us a story average of 6.5, which is the weakest so far this season, but it's still better than 4 out of 6 of the stories last season. Or 3 out of the 6, I should say. So, we'll take that as a win.
Absolutely.
So that brings us to the end of this story and this episode. We will be back next time for some giant green calamari, or possibly broccoli, in the power of Kroll. But in the meantime, as always, thank you everyone so very much for listening, and of course, have a good one. You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Reilly Schreck, Julie Philippek, and myself, Anthony Williams. This episode, Tamm on Tamm, was recorded on Wednesday the 22nd of May, 2024. If this is your first time listening into the show, all of our previous episodes are available wherever you like to get your podcasts. You can interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and the platform formerly known as Twitter at @Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and consider leaving us a review or rating on your favorite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And this episode was brought to you by Julie's new dog, Bandit, and his love of chew toys. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen carefully.